Union Cemetery in Connecticut is known to be one of the most haunted in the country. You can research yourself, but there's a lot of people who have seen the White Lady there. My family, who lives near the cemetery, told me of the legend, saying that normally people will see green mist or sparkle, and then they'll usually see her from their car. Whenever I visit them, I pass the cemetery more than 5 times a day. It's definitely creepy looking. About 20 years ago, when my aunt and her family moved there, they all went and got ice cream one night. On the way home, they were all looking to see if they could spot the ghost. One of my younger cousins was acting very weird when they got home. He told his sister that he saw the woman, but they were just kids and she thought that he was just trying to scare her. That night, he woke up, screaming and crying. His mom and sister went to calm him down, but he didn't stop. Every night, he woke up crying and screaming, talking to someone, sleepwalking, all the stuff you could imagine. And whenever they tried to calm him down, he was totally unaware of anything that was happening around him, as if he was in another world. They'd shake him aggressively, and he wasn't responsive, ever. My aunt said that she took him to see a spiritual doctor, and it was the doctor who healed him. Nothing has happened to him since. Fun fact, Ed and Lorraine Warren, the one the Conjuring movies are based off of, lived less than 10 minutes from my family's house. I drove by it last year, and it was crazy to think that the Annabelle doll was in that house. Lorraine wanted to visit my cousin's high school because the catacombs were supposed to be haunted, but the school didn't let her. My husband and I bought our first home almost 2 years ago. It's near the local cemetery. I say near, but it's more like the cemetery is our backyard. There's several rows of trees and a tall wooden fence that separates us from the cemetery. This aspect has never bothered us. We actually like being able to access the cemetery. It offers a decent walking path, and for the most part, I've always found them rather peaceful. If it's important, this cemetery, our house, and a few other houses are spread out at the end of a long dirt road. Our house was absolutely off the grid, which we appreciated. The town itself is sort of small, with a heavy population sitting mainly together in the center. A few large farm properties before getting to the outskirts, the cemetery, the forest, our property, and more forest. My point being that there's just not a lot of people out here. One of my favorite things to do is to walk my bird around outside in the mornings. It sounds silly, but we're talking about an umbrella cockatoo, one of the largest and most affectionate birds around. My beautiful bird is Bono, and yes, Bono is still around. He will likely outlive me and my husband. But anyway, Bono normally asks me to go for the walk, sort of how you would ask a dog to go for a walk. This is because shortly after I got Bono, I moved in with my husband, who was my then boyfriend, and shortly after that, he decided to adopt a dog, whom we named Snoopy. The two animals had coexisted for the first 4 years of Bono's life. The first phrase Bono ever learned was naturally the one that he'd heard the most, or maybe he just was fond of Snoopy's reaction to the question, "Want to go for a walk?" Sadly, Snoopy passed away due to a form of terminal blood cancer. It was 4 years after we adopted him. I wouldn't say that Bono was totally depressed, but he certainly missed his pal. When my husband and I stopped asking to go for a walk, Bono started asking instead. It made me incredibly sad, However, one day he started adding, "Bono, go for a walk." And this made me laugh. I picked him up and I took him outside for a walk, and the rest is history. He doesn't fly, he just sits on my shoulder, walks around on my shoulders, that sort of thing. So our routine was to take a couple of laps around the walking path, and then I'd let Bono chat with me and maybe other birds while sitting on this really large stone bench. The bench has a perch that Bono likes to sit on. One morning, early into our move to the new place, my morning walk with Bono was a little different. We had been walking our second and last loop before sitting down. I felt like Bono was being extra fidgety, hopping from shoulder to shoulder a bit more frequently. And then he started making noises. I started to get nervous until I realized that the sounds were familiar. The noises that Bono was mimicking was a whistle. He just hadn't made them since Snoopy passed away. I felt a little less uneasy, but I was curious. Maybe there was a dog in the park. I hadn't seen anyone walking their dog, but maybe someone had a new morning routine. I turn around and we're alone. No people, no pets. Bono then starts to rock back and forth, excitedly. Another move that he would do when Snoopy was around. Suddenly, I felt something brush past my legs. It startled me so much that I jumped and likely made a noise. This caused Bono to laugh at me in his best bird laugh, and he immediately followed it up with, "Silly Snoopy." And I froze. Standing there, I listen as Bono repeats it over and over. "Silly Snoopy, silly Snoopy." I see nothing, no explanation for what has just brushed past me. Within a few steps, we make it to the stone bench. Bono proceeds to hop onto his perch, and he says things like, "Good Snoopy," and "Snoopy kisses," followed by kissy noises. While sitting and observing my bird, a sudden warmth is felt to my left, just below Bono's perch. I can't really explain why I did this, but I found myself moving my hand over to pet the warmth to my left. When I did, I felt nothing physically, but I swear my entire body was saying, "Snoopy." And then I felt the warmth sort of disappear. For about a half a second, I felt really silly. But almost immediately after the warmth had left my side, I hear, "Good Snoopy. Bye-bye, Snoopy." Turning to look at my bird, I see he's still excited, rocking back and forth. "Bye-bye, Snoopy." He stops with all the familiar noises shortly afterwards, and for a few minutes we just sit. I remember crying, but not because I was sad or anything. Honestly, I was sort of moved by the whole thing. What I find so special and so strange about this encounter is Bono had never made these noises or had these conversations, not on our walks through the same area, and he hasn't done it since. Shortly after, I recall asking Bono on one of our walks, "Snoopy?" And he actually responded to me, saying, "No, Snoopy, ha ha." And also, just to say it, before this, I had never experienced anything like it, and I haven't since. The feeling of a phantom dog or phantom anything brushing against me, the warmth, it all felt like it really meant something. Oddly enough, my husband had a dream about Snoopy that same morning. We just hadn't talked about it yet. He's not sure about the whole thing being paranormal or connected, but he agrees that it's definitely strange and cool. When Snoopy left to the puppy hospital that day, over a year ago. None of us knew that it would be the last time we saw him. But at least my husband and I got to say goodbye, you know? Part of me feels like this was actually Snoopy saying goodbye to Bono. So I don't know that we'll ever encounter him again. But I'm glad we all shared this moment. Hug your pets and have a blessed day.